Sing.
Continue.
Hi everyone. It's we're at the May WiscWeb Lunch and Learn. I'm Jenna Clitter. I'm the service coordinator for the WiscWeb team. I'm joined here by Matt Goins. And we also have Ketter Joyner here today from Stratcom. And we have a couple topics for you today, so we'll get started. First, we wanted to do some reintroductions for the WiscWeb team. We realized that sometimes there's new folks in these sessions that probably don't have as much familiarity with our team or what we do. So we're just going to do some little introductions to our team members as well as like brief overview of just kind of how things work in our service. Then we're going to go into our service updates and reminders and our UW theme and migration updates and reminders. And then Ketter is going to share kind of part two of the image best practices that she started at the April Lunch and Learn. So first, to meet the WiscWeb team, uh, like I said, I'm Jenna Clitter, service coordinator. I'll pass off to Matt.
Hi, friends. I'm Matt Goins. For those of you who've been around a while, you have probably interacted with me once or many times over the past several years. I do training support, general guidance, consultations, accessibilities, user experience, lots of different things as part of.
Beatboxing,
Yeah, I am the entertainment as well sometimes.
jokes.
Singing. Hand holding, yes, indeed. I'm gonna go down my list alphabetically. Andrea.
I'm trying to get my camera on. Let's see if that works. There it is. Okay, hi, I'm Andrea Roning. I'm a developer with the WiscWeb team, and I primarily work on the UW theme and plugins. I'll go with Andy.
Hello,
I think
everyone. My name is Andy Summers. I'm also a software developer for the WiscWeb team, primarily working in the code space. And I also help out Scott a little bit with some of the infrastructure work. And I'll go to Scott.
A good segue. Hello, everyone. I'm Scott Berg. Oh, sorry. Camera was like, it's trying to autofocus me, and I guess it doesn't know where it's going. Anyways, I'm Scott Berg. I'm a DevOps engineer for the WiscWeb team. I work on the infrastructure, automation, things like that. A lot of stuff that front-end users probably never see, but do a lot of work to keep the websites going behind the scenes.
You know,
nice. And Jose is not here today
yep.
with us, but we do have Jose Valdez, who is our help desk agent who works in support on the team as well. You might hear from him if you send in a ticket. So we will move on here to kind of like what is UW Theme 2.0. UW Theme 2.0 is a collab with the Office of Strategic Communications digital strategy team. Ketter, who's going to be chatting later today, is a representative of that team. We also typically have other members here at our Lunch and Learns that you may hear from. UW Theme 2.0, we exclusively use that theme in our new environment so that we don't use other WordPress themes at all. We just kind of align with the campus standard. Um, Groups on campus aren't required to use UW Theme 2.0, but it is encouraged because it allows you to align with the campus brand. It's tested for accessibility, and in WiscWeb, we offer centralized support for it. Um, and documentation related to UW Theme 2.0 is located on the UW Theme 2.0 website. I did want to touch on just like what the WiscWeb lifecycle looks like, just because this is something that is a little bit confusing to some folks who are new sometimes. Your site starts at a project URL. So when you request a new site with us, especially now with our new UW Theme 2.0 sites, you're going to get something that publishes to sitename.project.wiscweb.wis.edu. That is a shareable URL, but it's not being crawled by search engines by default because it's meant to be sort of a temporary space for you to play around, build your site before it becomes live. When you want your site to be publicly visible, that's what we kind of refer to as launching. And to do so, you request a site launch with 2 weeks notice. And that's when you can get what we call a production domain. So your ultimate kind of URL where the site will sit. In terms of our support offerings, I did just want to kind of note we have several offerings available that are just part of the WiscWeb service. Office hours, you can get one-on-one help with a team member. Um, you can schedule those via like there's scheduling tooling where you can kind of see our calendars and then add that to your own calendar as well, which is really nice based on your availability. We also have members that offer different formats like Zoom or Teams and different times of the week. We have training videos for the new theme. There's a Kaltura playlist. Shout out to Matt for developing those. So if you're interested in understanding how to use the theme, along with the UW Theme 2.0 website, which was developed by Ketter and has some lovely documentation on it, we also have the training videos. If you have a need to get some help on your site, we do have a ticketing system. You can just send in a support request form with our service, and then we will follow up with you via email. We also have an email user list. You might hear from us. We add admins to that list as they come in and periodically refresh it. So we email out important news. We try to keep it to the top things that you might need to know. We try not to spam you too much. And then we have these lunch and learns, which is where you're at right now. I do want to point out, just in case you're not aware, when you log into your dashboard, when you're editing your site, there are some really handy links to some of these resources that we're talking about here. So highlighted in this red box here on the screen is like WiscWeb specific help. It includes a link to our support page, our knowledge base hub, how to submit a support request that we talked about, and a couple other opportunities. And then in this other box, kind of at the top in your dashboard, noted as UW brand and editorial help, we have a link to the UW Theme 2.0 documentation on that website, Office of StratCom, some brand guidance, things like that, just so that you have quick links to those as well right when you log in. And then when you get to the UW Theme 2.0 site, as you're looking for content, we really do recommend utilizing the search. You can type in keywords there, and that helps you find the content that you're looking for. Just noting that as like the quickest way to get to the documentation. But there is also a lovely menu that you can search as well. And then just to highlight a couple of related support offerings, there are tons of related support offerings, but I'm just going to highlight a couple. In case you're not already part of the WP Users Community of Practice, that is a community of WordPress users on campus, many of which use the UW theme and many of which are in WiscWeb. So it's just a nice opportunity to have a community of people who can help answer questions for you or give guidance. It's also where we post updates related to the theme and WiscWeb. There are virtual office hours. In addition to the main WiscWeb office hours, you can meet with one of the UW Theme 2.0 designers. So that's Ketter Joyner and Kate Price from the StratCom team. And they can offer some design kind of guidance for you. We also have virtual office hours listed with the Center for User Experience if you have questions specifically on how to make things accessible. Moving on from kind of that reintroduction stage, I know that was a lot of probably recap for a lot of you, but figured it might be helpful for some of the new folks. We just have our WiscWeb service updates and reminders here. As a reminder, WiscWeb can't be used for student orgs, including RSOs and DRSOs. These groups really are recommended to use WIN instead if they're an RSO or DRSO. Student orgs are actually not allowed to publish to WisStudy.edu domains or use campus branding in the header. So just noting that for awareness. We do get those questions periodically. If you fill out our new site request form, we try to give this information early, but sometimes people don't note that a site is a student org or an RSO or DRSO. And so that's why we're kind of sharing it. Sometimes we find them later and have to kind of let you know, but wanted to make sure everyone was aware. As an update, the NetID page protection plugin, which is just for WiscWeb, is ready for UW Theme 2.0. So this is not packaged with the theme like other plugins, but if you are in WiscWeb, you can use it. If you had been using the NetID page protection plugin in your UW Theme Classic site, it's not going to migrate over. You do need to re-request that we set this protection on the page, and we need to know which pages require it, but you could just reach out to us directly if you have that need. As another update, we are just continuing in-person office hours. Matt did include this in the email that went out, and we also posted it in WP users, but I did want to note this. We just had really low attendance on that, and we can offer more virtual options during that time to meet with more folks. For the UW theme 2.0 migration updates and reminder, just two little things here. WordPress core 7.0 will be released towards the end of May. Our teams are actively working on preparing the theme for that shift. So you will see that upgrade later, probably closer to June, where we'll actually update our environments. And another reminder to just submit feature requests where you can. We're actively looking at those that come in, assessing. It's a great opportunity to see what people have already submitted and upvote that. We do encourage folks, if you're going to upvote, to please add a comment along with your site URL and how you would use that feature. That just helps build our understanding of what is actually needed by the community. We also request that you kind of look at the list first before submitting, just in case there's someone that's already submitted a similar request. And with that, I will hand off to Ketter, who's going to kind of do a recap of what we talked about in the image best practice conversation from last time before starting on part 2. So take it away, Ketter.
Awesome. Let me share my screen super quick.
Hang on a sec, Ketter. Let me upgrade you to
Okay.
co-host so that
Oh yeah.
we don't accidentally have anything happen.
Thank you.
You should be able to now.
It says only one presenter can share at a time.
Well, let me stop then, huh?
All good.
There we go.
Cool. You guys should be able to see my screen. Awesome. Okay. Hi, hello. My name is Ketter. And as Jenna mentioned earlier, I am part of the strategic communication digital strategy team. And I do a lot of UX work for the theme. Kate Price wasn't able to make it today, but I'm going to try to do her slides justice. Kate Price is a really talented designer on the team, and does a wonderful job thinking about how to use images. So bear with me as I talk through this with you all. But first, if folks remember from last time, we talked about sizing images in WordPress and the UW theme. So a lot of that was about understanding like dimensions, resolution, file size, and compression and aspect ratio. And part 2 is going to be focused on best practices. But here are some resources that you can go to as an outcome from last time. So the recording on part 1, and then we've got a page on the UW theme site that discusses those topics too. So the first thing I'd probably say is getting familiar with some of those terms that I mentioned, like dimension, compression, resolution, and both of these resources dive into those topics. And I would also say that like image sizing in WordPress and in the theme is sort of an evolving conversation for us. It's something that we're also learning too. So when you have questions, like please let us know about that, because it's likely that our guidance will shift and adjust too as we're also learning more. So thanks to everybody here who reached out before these before we've done these presentations, because it helped both WiscWeb and our group determine that we need to talk about them. So it's very helpful for all of us. So here is just a quick recap of some of the takeaways from part 1. And again, you could go to those resources to learn more about those. So we won't do a deep dive today, but download the 2400 pixel photos from the UW photo library. Really take advantage of those if you can. Get into the habit of compressing your photos before uploading and try to keep your image sizes under 500 kilobytes. And, you know, like 500 exactly isn't something that you need to do. It's just making sure that it's under that limit, to make sure that your pages um, don't load slowly and stay fast. Um, you know, for custom image sizes that you're doing, maybe you're a more advanced designer and you do a lot of cropping your photos for specific layouts. You want to make sure you're uploading at least 1620 pixel images so WordPress can generate all the different sizing options that it creates, and it will feed the browser different image sizes depending on the browser window size. And you can learn a little bit more. That's an advanced topic, but you can learn a little bit more about that in those two resources I shared earlier. Um, and use JPEGs or WebP file types for photos. Avoid PNG files. They're just unnecessarily large. Unless you need something to have a transparent background, that's where, like a logo or something, that's where PNG files come into play. Or if you're a more advanced designer and doing more like illustrative work or something like that, images, maybe that's something you tap into. But generally, for most people, stick with JPEG. If you're unfamiliar with WebP, you don't even need to worry about it. Just stick with JPEG. Um, Most of the time, you want to choose the large resolution option that will show up in the WordPress settings when you're working with an image block or a cover block. Um, WordPress can really only scale down. It can't scale up. So if you're starting with a small pixel size image, like 300 pixels, it can't make that bigger for you. You have to start with a large photo to begin with. So bigger images are better in this world. All right, let me go to the next slide. So yeah, let's get into image best practices. We will talk about some strategies that we use also in Stratcom for designing our sites, and just strategies that are good for everyone to sort of be following. So the first one here is, this is probably obvious, but avoid using off-topic images. So like, think about, let's say you had a graduate research award page or something, and you use an image of like a Madison skyline or something. That I would consider that one as being more irrelevant to the content or not relevant to the content. So an irrelevant image is worse than no image at all. So visitors use images as a quick check on whether the page is what they think it is. So if you're using like a mismatched image, it can create friction and make your page feel more confusing. So before adding an image or thinking about using an image, ask yourself, like, does this image help a visitor understand the page or their content better? If yes, then cool. That image sounds like it's a good fit. If not, maybe leave it out. And work with white space and other elements that you have in the theme and color, things like that. Yeah, and in this one, you want to prioritize, oops, sorry. Here we go. Sorry, we've got some animation here. You want to prioritize authentic subject-specific visuals. So kind of steer away from generic stock images if you can. I know that not everybody has the luxury of doing that. Some stock images can be really good, but asking yourself that question of, does it help people understand the content better? Try to use photos from the UW photo library wherever you can. They're a great resource. There's so many options when you're in the photo library. We talked about this in part 1 of the presentation, but there is AI image search that is really good. Actually, you can search by like tone and emotion, and it does a good job picking up images related to that. So if you're feeling overwhelmed in the photo library, like most people, tap into that AI search. It's pretty good. And make sure to review the campus visuals policy. In particular, that policy provides a little bit more guidance around how you can use and alter photos and other campus media. It's just a good one to be aware of. And you can find all of that guidance and more on this link here on brand.wis.edu. And in this one, we see sometimes, but we really want to discourage people from embedding
text inside of images, and there's a few reasons for why you want to avoid doing that. And the biggest one is accessibility. As a general rule of thumb, don't use images of text when real text would do. So, the exception to that is more like logos or decorative illustrations. That's kind of the exception there, but you want to also treat those with proper alt text, not as a way to write headlines. So just keep that in mind. Um, going back to the accessibility piece here, text baked into a background image, such as a headline or paragraph copy, it's not accessible. So search engines can't index it, browsers can't resize or translate it, and screen readers can't read that text within the image. So when text is embedded, it's kind of missing a large group of people that might want to access that, and it's not as accessible if you take that approach. And cropping in UW Theme 2.0, some people have run into this with the cover block. If you are embedding text in an image in the cover block is always trying to fill the available space that it has. You're never going to be able to get text to fit perfectly within the cover block if you've got embedded text. So that's because of responsive image sizing. It's doing its job. It's doing what it should be doing, but it makes it so you can't have like a fixed image size within there if you're wanting something always to be shown like text that's embedded in an image. So instead, you'll just use text blocks to add content or use the cover block to add text on top of the image. And you want to be very careful about adding text on images because of contrast, which we'll talk a little bit about next, but generally try to avoid that as much as possible. And if you do it, make sure that you're meeting good contrast ratios for accessibility. So here you want to, like we mentioned, ensure color contrast meets WCAG standards. So use text sparingly over images and really avoid placement over busy parts for optimal contrast. We'll show an example of this. And the web content accessibility guidelines, for those who aren't familiar, you might hear people say on campus WCAG for short, that requires digital content meet the following minimum contrast ratios that I'll show here on the screen. And the Center for UX has a great contrast guide that talks a little bit more about this. Some of this content's pulled from that. It's an awesome resource. The Make It Accessible guys are just awesome in general, but you can learn a little bit more about contrast there too. And don't use custom gradient colors over images. You want to stick to black and white gradients and the preset options in the cover block itself. So there are 2 black and white gradients specifically designed for text over images, and I'll show you what those look like. And then there's also, another good rule of thumb is setting the black overlay in the cover block slider to be anywhere from 60 to 80% to make sure that your opacity is strong enough. That generally works for most photos. When I'm designing a site, I'm pretty much always going straight to the 80%. That meets most of my needs if I'm working with the cover block in that way. So here's the cover block on a page here. I'm going to open up my block settings in the top toolbar on the right-hand side. And if I open up overlay here, I've got a white overlay on this right now, but here are the gradient options that you can apply. There is the image with text black gradient. This is meant for being more optimized for if you are using the cover block and you've got text on top, and then there's a white version of that. And then we've got some other preset gradients here that you can use as solid background colors in patterns. So in patterns, let me show you, for example, in a pre-footer category, let's add this one. This is using the cover block with content inside. So you can also use the cover block as sort of a layout block where it's a container, a content section that contains content. And when I click on overlay here in the cover block properties, you can see it has this badger red gradient applied. So that's how you can use these 4 here as solid background colors, which is a nice touch. We're hoping to have more patterns with these and with more of these options baked into them, like we do with the pre-footer, but just wanted to call that out because some people don't realize you can also use the cover block in that way too. All right. Another big one is, change the content position and focus area of the image in the cover block to reposition content over a less busy area of the image. So you really want to avoid placing content inside the cover block or on an image over the busy part. So you can see here that right here it's over the legs running, and down here you've got it over the part of the road where it's just less busy. In the cover block, I've got it selected. Let me open up list view up at the left-hand side of the block toolbar. You can see I've got the cover block selected because I can see that this is the cover block icon. And I can click on all this. How many dots is that? 12. I can click on this change position, this icon here of all those dots, and I can change the position of that text right here. So you've got that as a resource to try to change the position of your content depending on the types of images that you're working with so that they don't display over a really busy part. The next piece of advice here, if you are adding text over images, is to start with patterns first. So the 2.0 offers a wide variety of banner patterns with, we've put some default settings in there for you with nice gradients applied. And so this will just help you start with some best practices so you don't have to think too hard about it. And then we've also got page title. It's under the category page title patterns where your page title is already baked into the layout itself. So the mini hero banner is one that we're seeing people use a lot, which we're excited about. But that's where you can find the title block already built in there. So it's meant to be at the top of your page. We hope to build this out more so that there's more options within here that you can pick from. So some contrast takeaways. This is kind of all applying to the cover block, but you want to use text sparingly over images. Avoid placing text over the busy parts of your image. Stick to the cover block's preset gradient and solid color overlays, like I mentioned. So these options that you see in the overlay tab, these gradient options. Don't tap into this if you don't need to. If you do need to, stick to black and white colors and only use this if you need to increase the contrast in certain areas of your images. So think of this more as an accessibility tool versus a tool for adding custom colors. And then start with patterns. So look at the banner or page title category first. So let me show you how to access patterns if you're new here. I'm in the block editor on a page. Up in this top toolbar here, you can see this big blue button. We call this the block inserter. I'm going to click that. I got my blocks tab for adding a block to a page, or I can switch to the patterns tab. And this is where all my patterns are. Something that people miss sometimes, and myself included, is all the way at the bottom, probably because it's all the way at the bottom, is it says explore all patterns. If you click that, you get a modal of patterns that are available to you. Mine looks a little bit different than yours because I have some of my own patterns added on this site. But this is what you can see, all the theme defaults. And then also be conscious of checking your color contrast. So I'll talk a little bit about that right now for the cover block because it can be kind of spicy. The Wave browser extension tool is amazing if anyone hasn't used that before, but unfortunately it creates a lot of false positives with the cover block we found with WordPress. So when you're testing the cover block for contrast, the Wave browser extension tool is going to give you some false positives for that. So I avoid using that extension only specifically for checking contrast for the cover block. I use it for everything else. And then I was going to mention, I think this video should play here, but Firefox or Dubbot. So if you have access to the Dubbot tool, it will tell you in your dashboard if you've got contrast errors, and I haven't yet experienced any false positives with the cover block in Dubbot yet. So that feels very reliable to me. And Firefox browser has also has been very accurate for testing the cover block. And I'll just play this video again here, but this is just showing you how in Firefox you can go to browser tools, go to web developer tools, click on accessibility, and it could be kind of challenging to, I can share some Firefox documentation on how to do this, but it's showing you when you hover over that text on the cover block, it's showing you its WCAG standards and whether or not it's meeting the appropriate contrast ratios. All right. This next part, we're diving a little bit more into some design concepts versus contrast, but you want to don't add borders around images in most cases. I would say just don't do it. Borders around images, they often come from the instinct that an image needs more visual weight. In UW Theme 2.0, the rounded corners and the optional drop shadow options that it has, fit that need pretty well and align a little bit more with the brand and how we use these tools. So you can see here like a hard border looks really heavy, it adds visual noise to the page, and it rarely matches the page's other styling. And so if you want more emphasis, you can see this looks a little bit more elegant here. We've got some rounded corners and a nice drop shadow, and that gives the image a little bit more pop on the page if it's something that you're wanting to highlight as somebody scrolls. So think about how you can apply shadow and this rounded quarter option in the image block. And then always add alt text to images. There's kind of two things to know here, but first, alt text, it's the text a screen reader reads aloud so that a person knows what your image is about. And it's also what shows up if the image fails to load on the page. So it's helpful in that context too. But describe what the image is communicating, not what it looks like as a file. So if the image is purely decorative, you can leave alt text off. You don't need to add it there. You can leave this field blank. And the Center for UX has a really, really great alt text guide that I highly recommend looking into. I can share some links after this in the chat. We've got a slide for resources here, but they have some great guidance on how to write good alt text. And sometimes if an image is decorated, you might not need it. So, second, it's where to add alt text in WordPress. This is it's a gripe I have with WordPress, and that it's kind of confusing. Some of you maybe have run into this already, but you can add alt text per page or in the media library, and just get in the habit of always adding alt text in the media library versus on the page. So here I am. Let's just add an image so I can show you what I mean. I'm adding the image block. I type / in the block I'm looking for as the way that I look for blocks. You can also go to the block inserter up here and search for your block and add it that way. But this is a quick command / image. So I'm going to add the image block. Let's look at the media library. Let's choose this cutie. And oops. I'm going to remove this alt text from the media library real quick. Click select. So you can see I've got this notice that says image has no alt text. If I add it here on the page, it doesn't add it to the media library. That's on a per page basis, and that trips people up. So if I click replace here and I go to open the media library, see how it's not there? It's not saved with my image in the database. So just get in the habit of adding it in the media library versus on that per page base, unless you absolutely know you're never going to add that image anywhere else, but it's just good to get into that muscle memory. Curious if anyone's run into that yet here, but I certainly have. Because that alt text field is right there, it's so tempting. But yeah, use the media library. All right. And then some folks have asked about this, but it's a really nice feature of Gutenberg and the block editor, but you can preview your images on mobile, your pages on mobile before publishing. So up here in the top toolbar, next to the publish and the settings icon, there's this laptop icon that says view on hover. So you can click view, and then I can select desktop, which is what I'm viewing right now, or I can view it on tablets. You can see what your images look like, or I can view on mobile. So, use this as a resource. It's a nice handy tool. And then once published, something that we do a lot is just get your phone out and actually take a look there too, because the preview options aren't always perfect. So it's just good to actually see and experience things on a real phone. If we know that I have an Android, so if somebody else has an iPhone, I'll grab them too and just like take a peek at this. The next part here is making sure you use consistent sizing and aspect ratio for images, especially when they're in a layout like a row of cards where you want those to look visually the same. So sometimes we'll see a mismatch of image heights. And so just for consistency and helps with readability, and setting user expectations of what your content looks like, it's a good idea to make sure that those maintain consistent sizing, and you can tap into that aspect ratio setting in WordPress to set what that looks like. So here I've got an image on the page, and if I set it to the classic 3:2, actually UW photo library images, or a lot of images come in as a classic 3:2 just generally. So let's set it to like square. That's why you didn't see a difference before. So this is set to square. So you could see how if I had two of these side by side, I could make them the same. And that's how you can get that consistent sizing, which is really nice. All right. So this is just showing that before and after. So you can see how this looks it just looks a little wonky if you've got different image heights in a pattern like this or a design like this. And this just looks a lot more consistent and visually pleasing to the eye as well. And this same thing goes for creating alternating content. So in UW Theme Classic, there was actually like a page element for creating alternating content. In UW Theme 2.0, we're using the media and text block to do this. And so if you're using patterns that have the media text library, let's actually just add one to the page. It's easier to see. I'm going to go and do patterns. And I believe it's under the featured category where we've got alternating content here. I'm going to add one to the page. And if I go into list view up here, you can see that this is the media text block, each of these here. And they're all grouped together in the group block. And I know that because of this is the group block icon. But if these are all kind of related content together, alternating content rows. So you want to make sure those images also stay consistent and have consistent sizing because all of that content is together and should flow nicely visually. So, if you want to, in the image and text block, unfortunately, or the media text block, unfortunately, you don't have access to the aspect ratio. So when you're sizing for the media and text block, you want to make sure your images are cropped to be all the same and have the same aspect ratio before you use them in that block. But you can look at our patterns for how we're doing that. But this is one scenario where you can see or if this one has a different image height than this one, or width, it looks a little bit strange. And in the media text block, you also have this slider so that you can decide how much width the image takes up. So you want to make sure that when you've got alternating content rows that are together, that is also the same too, so that they stay cohesive. And then the next part here is to give attention to images in the people plugin, the UW people plugin. So there's really no magic that can be done to make profile images all look the same. You need to have a similar perspective, and this is something that Matt has done a really great job talking about, where profile photos that are close to the camera, further back from the camera, as well as images that are sized the same for the people plugin. WordPress can't fix that kind of stuff, so you want to make sure that your profile photos are sized well and kind of contain the same perspectives as well. Profile images in the theme, they work best when the person is centered in the frame. So sometimes, and again, I know you don't always have the luxury of having great profile photos. Sometimes you're just working with what you're working with, but where you can, try to see if you can make sure the person's always centered in the frame if you're working with a list of people, and you want those all to look the same. And uploading square images in the people plugin tends to work the best. It's the most predictable way to get consistent framing for profile images. So if you're looking for a rule of thumb, try to keep those square. So that's that 1:1 aspect ratio that we've talked about in part 1 of this. And these are some resources that I'll post in chat after this. But please come to design office hours. Kate's often there and Julie as well, designers of the theme, and we can help you with questions around images or layout. If you're just like, I've got something that I know I can make this look better, I don't know how, we can help you with all that kind of stuff and show you some tips and tricks in the theme too. A lot of this is just learning by doing, and you'll get more comfortable with Gutenberg the more you play around and the more you use patterns. But we can help you with that stuff too. And just another call out again for the Make It Accessible guides from the Center for User Experience. They've got great stuff on accessibility there that I reference daily, sometimes daily, and weekly for sure. So yeah, thank you so much. I did not keep up with chat. So sorry.
No, it's
Okay.
good.
Yeah, we had one conversation going about photo attributing credit to photos, but I I
Oh,
think
sure.
it's a specific case, and I just recommended that Adrian reach out to you guys for office hours to go through it.
Yeah, definitely.
I also just kind of want to hit back on the whole people page thing.
Please, yeah.
Um, I I will sound mean, and I apologize, but it is my nature to be draconic about things. I strongly recommend all of you to give a critical look at your people pages and don't use images if they are not good quality. Because a lot of times when I meet with folks or I get emails from folks, it's always like, Matt, these images, they're blurry and things like that. And the reason is you're trying to stick a 150 pixel image into a 500 pixel space or something like that. It's not going to work. Like Ketter said, WordPress doesn't do the magic. You have to either edit that image, edit all of your images to be the same size so that there is that consistency. And if you can't edit them all to be the same size and be a good large size, don't use the image. Just tell the person that if you want your image displayed, you need to send me a better image. Um, that kind of stuff sticks out like a sore thumb when I go through a people page and I see good image, blurry image, pixelated image, things like that, where you're sort of you're forcing a square peg into a round hole, and you shouldn't. Either they're all going to be round pegs or they're all going to be square pegs, but don't try to make an image be something that it isn't. It's okay to be critical of what you're looking at. It's okay to not like something and not do it. Your websites are sort of like your portal to the rest of the world. Don't settle. Force other people to also pick up that slack. Get a better image from somebody. Everybody, I shouldn't say everybody, the vast majority of us walk around with high quality cameras in our pockets. Take out a phone, snap a picture of yourself. There's a high resolution image that you can send to somebody. So, like I said, just be critical. Don't just settle.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you, Ketter, for presenting this information. I just want to recognize Ketter and the other theme designers, including Kate Price, who's here as well. Just you do a wonderful job with the design of the theme as well as this documentation for us in this presentation. So we're just really grateful, and it's helpful guidance because this is tough stuff. I think that we often get questions in this realm, and we just really appreciate knowing what we should do here. In that same vein, I did wonder if there's any additional questions that folks had just about image best practices. We did see that one in the chat, but if you have other questions, now is the time. So maybe noodle on what you've kind of encountered yourselves on your sites that hadn't been covered. Yeah, Denise, you have your hand up.
Um, I wanted to ask, since I'm working on a scientific site and I might have images that are like labeled diagrams, is there guidelines for if I make new ones, what I should be doing so that they're accessible and clear.
Yeah, I'm actually going to see if we have, Ketter, if you want to answer that, you may, but I was also just going to check and see if we had any
I don't think we do.
members of the center here today. Okay.
Yeah, I was going to look for their guide on complex images. They have a really good one.
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
nice.
And let me find that real quick. Admittedly, working with more complex images like that isn't something that I've done as much, so I don't feel confident sharing too much about that, at least today, but I want to find that guide because it is lovely. It has some good resources on it.
I'll look for it as well. Oh, I found it.
Oh, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. So I'm going to drop that in the chat, Denise. This is specific to complex image accessibility, so that's what I'll label it as. There is a specific page about that. Looks like it also talks about how to do alt text. I do know that this is something where you do want to make sure that the context of the image is coming through on alt text. With diagrams, someone who's navigating with a screen reader wouldn't be able to get all that context. So that is important to consider, what you would want to convey via alt text.
Yeah, and I was going to mention, kind of piggybacking off that too. I know one aspect of this too is also trying not to explain everything that's going on either. So there's sort of that balance of making sure that it's clear and also a short description. But I do see that this guide goes into that a little bit, and there's maybe some exceptions there that I'm not considering. But I imagine, Denise, there's a lot of people in the research area who have this exact same question. So thanks for asking that.
Yeah, Matt also dropped in the w3.org guidance
awesome.
on this, which is, thank you, Matt. Another helpful resource.
Can I just ask along those lines, if you do have a complex image that has a pretty nice caption that describes it, is there a good way to point the screen reader towards that caption and say, give just a really short description and alt text, but then say, see the caption for details? I mean, is that considered not best practice?
That's a good question. I would definitely recommend seeing if you can reach out to Center for UX, at least their accessibility office hours, just to confirm. But I know,
Okay.
the caption text is still accessible by a screen reader, so you wouldn't need to
Yes.
also repeat, see the caption. I think that would probably
Okay.
just add more noise for a screen reader. That's my first gut instinct, at least, because there's
Okay.
that balance of also wanting to reduce noise for screen readers to, making sure that they're not being read duplicate content, for example, and things like that. But yeah, at least right now, I'd probably recommend reaching out to them just for a confirmation. But I don't think you would need to indicate to go see the caption. It should be read to them.
Yeah, I did add that link in the chat. There's two resources listed via that link. So if you're wondering about how to make your content accessible, that's the Center for User Experience, which is the first link in that hub. If you're wondering about how to comply with the DOJ ruling regarding accessibility, that would be the ADA office hours. So just kind of noting that distinction. I think, Linda, in your case, you'd be looking at the Center for User Experience office hours since you're wondering about how to make that accessible. We also use this resource. I'm meeting with Leah Bowers from the center later today. Sometimes we have questions about how to make things accessible as well. And it's a wonderful resource. We love the folks at the center. They're extremely helpful. So that I would recommend kind of scheduling that as you're able to get more insight. We're cautious about providing accessibility guidance here just because we are not experts in that area. Sometimes we have some context, but we do try to kind of point people towards the existing resources that are available. Sometimes the center is able to join us for these lunch and learns to offer that guidance directly, but today we just didn't have folks available.
Yeah, I'm going to post, unless somebody already did, the Digital Accessibility Community of Practice group too, if anyone hasn't joined that yet.
Yeah, good call.
here's a link to that. But you can also ask questions like that in the Microsoft Teams channel that when you join the group, you can join it. There's a link of how to join it on that page too, where sort of like community source, people chatting, and folks from the center and others chime in there too. One thing on complex, or not complex images, sorry, captions, is that in the image block, I'm just going to share my screen super quick. Oh, actually, Denise, oh, sorry, your hand is down. Just wanted to make sure that you didn't have another question. The image block, like we mentioned, alt text and captions could be kind of tricky, and making sure you add alt text in the media library for your image. But you can also add the caption here too. So I'm just going to say really cute dog for now for demonstration purposes. And by default, that caption will display in the image block when you add that image to the page. And you can remove the caption. When you have a block selected in list view, I've got this image block selected. The block toolbar appears, which gives you more options for interacting with that block. You can remove the caption here by clicking that. But what's really annoying is once you remove it, you don't get that caption back. You have to re-add the block to the page. So just note that caveat with the image block. You might run into that. Minor annoyance, but just once you start working with the editor more, you might run into that and be like, why does that not show after I've hidden it? I think a caption. I'm just adding a caption here in the media library. You can see that it comes with it by default. But once I remove it and then add it back, it's not there. I have to add the image block again to get that back there. Weird quirk.
Good tip. Thank you, Ketter. Any other questions? We have about 6 minutes left. Doesn't have to be about images. Could just be questions about the theme or the migration.
Hi, I have a quick question. I'm new to WiscWeb. I just started a couple weeks ago. Is there any best practice resources as far as like margins and padding? I've just been dancing around on the WiscWeb 2.0 site versus like adding it internally or externally. Anything related to that out there?
That's a really good question. We would like to have more detailed guidance on this on the UW theme site eventually. But I think let me grab a couple of, let me share my screen again really quick. And feel free to also come to design office hours. That's a great question for design office hours too, if you want to talk a little bit more further about it. Here's my screen. On the UW Theme 2.0 site, if I go under guides here, under design best practices, we talk a little bit about spacing here. And the best advice right now, take a look at this, but the best advice right now is to look at how our patterns handle margin and spacing. So especially in your content sections, sort of, relying on patterns first, wherever you can as a starting point, and then making sure the spacing that you're using there is applied consistently throughout your site. Might take some getting used to, as this is new for everybody and how to apply these things, but starting with patterns has our ideal sizing and margin baked in already. So that's a good way to learn, what are those defaults that we recommend. So patterns are definitely your friend in this area for that question. But please come to office hours. We'd love to chat with you about it more too, so we can help look at some of your pages if there's like kind of more specific spacing questions too. Kind of the biggest one is, a lot of people are nervous of having lots of padding. Don't shy away from it. So look at our patterns and see what we're using. A lot of there's more breathing room in this theme, and there's a lot of benefits to doing that so that your content is more readable on the page. And easy to scan as people scroll.
Thank you, Ketter. Also just noting, I did throw the guides link out there. Ketter and the Stratcom team have been working on this sort of guidance hub, which is a lovely addition to the UW Theme 2.0 site. Has tons of really great information about just like general guidance, including that design best practice link that Ketter shared, which I can put in the chat. But just noting that there are some really, really great resources in that hub as well.
Chloe, I might reach out to you as we build out more of this guidance, knowing you had some specific questions around that to kind of look at some stuff for us when we have more.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Thank you. And then do you by chance have the link for those Design Lab office hours or where those are listed online?
Yeah.
Yes.
I can get that for you.
Thank
Oh,
you.
cool. Thanks. Thanks, Jenna.
Yep. It's in our larger office hours page on our site, but there's the direct link. Within that same page, you can find WiscWeb office hours, so meeting with a team member, the design office hours, which is the direct link that I just shared, and then the accessibility related office hours that we talked about as well. These are all virtual options that you kind of schedule with someone. And also welcome, Chloe. Happy to meet someone new to WiscWeb and the theme.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, we're at 12:59 here. Any lingering questions that folks have? Otherwise, I think we'll wrap there. All right. Thanks again to Ketter for the excellent presentation on best practices for images. And I think we'll cap it there. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, WiscWeb. Bye.